The young and the restless spoilers shock. The night air in Genoa City was thick with tension, a low mist curling around the street lamps as if nature itself feared what was about to unfold. Martin walked the sidewalks with a predatory calm, his black overcoat buttoned up against the chill. Not a flicker of fear crossed his cold eyes, despite the city's whispers that his dark secrets were out. Everyone knew now that he'd orchestrated the kidnappings of Sharon and Phyllis, two of Genoa's most beloved women. Yet here he was, striding through the heart of town, as if the entire city belonged to him. Martin's reputation had preceded him. A renowned hypnotherapist with a silver tongue and an unsettling smile, he possessed an uncanny ability to bend wills. He didn't need violence to get what he wanted, only the power of suggestion, spoken in a voice as smooth and hypnotic as warm honey. And so far, his victims had fallen in line like willing marionettes. But this time, his target was someone far more dangerous, Traci Abbott, the indomitable sister of Jack and Kyle Abbott, and a woman whose sharp mind and iron will had kept her safe in more perilous situations than this. From the moment Martin had laid eyes on Traci's stately Victorian home, he'd known she was special. Her confidence radiated from her every gesture, an aura he both admired and resented. He wanted her on his side, not broken beyond repair. Killing her would solve nothing, he needed her allegiance. He needed her to believe in him, to champion his cause against those who dared stand in his way. Inside her home, Traci moved with deliberate caution. She'd sensed Martin's approach long before he knocked. As a veteran of corporate wars and family dramas, she knew the telltale signs of someone who thrived on control. When the knock came at her door, she opened it just enough to slip her cell phone into her pocket. Martin's polite smile and gentle "Good evening, Mrs. Abbott" did little to calm her racing heart. "May I come in?" he asked, stepping forward. "I have something important to discuss with you." Traci's eyes narrowed. She knew Martin's reputation, but she also knew his greatest weapon, hypnosis. He was a doctor of the mind, able to bypass resistance and plant suggestions deep within his subject's subconscious. Once under his spell, they would follow his commands as though they were their own thoughts. She allowed him in, guiding him to the parlor where the heavy drapes were drawn tight. "What is it you want, Martin?" she asked, her voice steady despite the hammering of her heart. "I want your help," he said, settling into an armchair. "I've been wronged by certain people in this town, people who betrayed me. I need someone of your intelligence and integrity to join me. Together, we could reshape Genoa City." Traci suppressed a shudder. She took a seat across from him, her fingers curling around her phone. "I don't know what you've been told, but I won't be part of any of your schemes." Martin's lips curved into that unsettling smile. "You misunderstand. This isn't a request. This is an invitation to step into a new world, one where you and I work side by side." He paused, eyes locking onto hers. "You trust me, don't you, Traci?" Traci's breath caught. She felt the pull of his voice, a subtle tug at her will. But she had anticipated this. Martin's confidence was his greatest flaw, he underestimated her vigilance. She'd researched his techniques, studied his publications, even practiced counter-hypnosis. Now was the time to act. "Oh, I trust you," she said softly, voice trembling just enough to sound genuine. "But I have one condition." "Name it," Martin said, leaning forward. Traci's fingers slid across the table to her phone. "I need to speak to Jack. And I need him to hear every word of this conversation." With a quick flick, she activated the phone's speaker mode and dialed her brother's number. On the other end, Jack Abbott was just leaving his office, the memory of his sister's laughter still warm in his mind from their last phone call. When he heard Traci's voice, tense, urgent, he froze. "Traci? What's wrong?" "Jack, he's here," she whispered, eyes darting to Martin, who watched her with thinly veiled amusement. "Martin. He wants me on his side, Jack. He's going to try to hypnotize me." Jack's blood ran cold. He'd heard rumors of Martin's kidnapping schemes but never believed they'd reach his own family. Stay calm, Traci. I'm on my way. Don't let him know you've called me. Traci nodded, though Martin had already picked up on the call. He's coming, Martin, she said, forcing a shaky smile. My brother's on his way. You won't get away with this. Martin's smile faded into a frown of frustration. You tricked me. He rose, voice low and threatening. But it doesn't matter. You'll still listen. He stepped forward, raising a hand as if to place it on her forehead. Traci's heart pounded as she fought to maintain her mental defenses. She'd learned from her therapist friend that counter-suggestions, quiet affirmations of her own strength, could repel his influence. She repeated silently, I am in control. His words have no power over me. Outside, Jack was barreling down the streets of Genoa City in his black SUV, sirens of his anxiety blaring louder than any police car. He weaved through traffic, adrenaline fueling his drive, even though he knew he couldn't exceed the speed limit. Traci had drilled that into him years ago after one too many speeding tickets. Each red light felt like an eternity, each honk of a horn a dagger to his nerves. Back in the parlor, Martin's hand hovered inches from Traci's temple. His voice softened, a velvet whisper meant to lull her into submission. Relax, Traci. Let go of your fear. Trust me. Traci felt the pull, a seductive lull at the edge of consciousness. Her vision blurred. But she clamped down on her will, recalling Jack's voice on the phone, urging her to hold on. You're wasting your time, she said, voice quavering but firm. I won't. At that moment, the front door burst open. Jack charged in, his face a mask of fierce determination. Get away from her, he roared. Martin stepped back, eyes narrowing. Abbott. Always the hero. Jack strode forward, placing himself between Martin and his sister. You're under arrest, he said, though he had no badge, just the unshakable conviction of a brother who would do anything to protect his family. Martin laughed, a cold, humorless sound. Arrest me? You think you can stop me? I'm untouchable. Jack's jaw clenched. Not tonight. With lightning reflexes, Jack grabbed Martin's wrist just as the man lunged forward again. The two men struggled, Martin's calculated strength pitted against Jack's raw, desperate power. Traci slipped behind her brother, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. She didn't know if the police would arrive in time, but she had done all she could. The struggle ended as Jack managed to wrench Martin's arm behind his back, pinning him against the wall. Martin hissed in anger, but Jack held firm, his eyes blazing with protective fury. You'll never hypnotize her again, he growled. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Martin's facade of control cracked, revealing a flicker of genuine fear. You think this is over, he spat. You haven't seen the last of me. But Jack only tightened his grip. You're done. And as for you, Traci, he turned to his sister, concern and relief flooding his expression. Are you okay? Traci sank into his arms, her legs weak with adrenaline and relief. Thanks to you, Jack, she whispered. I knew you'd come. Outside, the police cars screeched to a halt. Officers spilled out, guns drawn, and quickly moved in to handcuff Martin. He glared at Jack and Traci, promising vengeance in a voice that was little more than a rasp. As the officers led him away, Jack wrapped an arm around Traci's shoulders. You're safe now, he said softly. I've got you. Traci looked up at her brother, her eyes shining with gratitude. I knew you would. In the stillness that followed, Genoa City's night air felt a little less ominous. The storm had passed, for now. But Martin's final words echoed in their minds, you haven't seen the last of me. And both Jack and Traci knew that in a city built on secrets and ambition, darkness could always return. Yet in that moment, as they stood together in the parlor's muted glow, one truth shone brighter than any fear: family would always be their greatest strength, a bond no hypnotic suggestion or sinister plot could ever break. Jack's heart pounded as he recalled the nightmare that had gripped his thoughts. In his mind's eye, he saw Traci sprawled across the floor of their family home, a dark, ominous pool of blood surrounding her, the lifeless sheen of crimson marking the aftermath of a brutal brawl. Martin, with his chilling confidence and dangerous expertise with hypnotic manipulation, had vanished into the night after the violent altercation, a chaos where only the strong, armed with weapons and ruthlessness, emerged victorious. The mere thought of such a scenario was unbearable. Jack's chest tightened as he imagined every detail, the shattered glass, the overturned furniture, and most harrowing of all, the possibility that his beloved sister had suffered a fate too horrible to contemplate. Determined to put an end to his agonizing reverie, Jack vowed to get to Traci as quickly as possible. Every second that ticked by amplified his inner dread. He could almost hear her voice, a soft, caring sound that had always provided solace during turbulent times, now silenced by a tragic end. His mind raced with images of the violent confrontation that might have unfolded in their home, where the stronger force, armed and dangerous, would impose its brutal will. The very thought of it made his pulse race and his palms sweat. He imagined the glint of cold steel in an enemy's hand, the brutal clash of wills, and the horrifying aftermath that would follow if Traci were caught in the crossfire. With a steely resolve fueled by both desperation and determination, Jack leaped into his car. The drive through the rain-soaked streets of Genoa City was nerve-wracking. The rhythmic wipers struggled against the torrential downpour, each flash of lightning outside casting ominous shadows on the dashboard. Jack's thoughts swirled with worry, every darkened alley and abandoned building along his route heightened his fears. In his mind, the road itself seemed to warn him of the potential horrors that awaited at the destination. He longed to push the pedal to the metal, but caution held him back. The streets were treacherous, and each mile traveled was a reminder of how fragile life could be when danger lurked just around the corner. As Jack neared Traci's house, a modest, yet dignified residence that had long been a sanctuary for their family, his anxiety escalated. The image of Traci lying amid chaos and carnage haunted him. His thoughts turned to Martin, the man responsible for unleashing such terror. Martin had always exuded a terrifying sense of control, a confidence that made him appear invincible. Yet now, that same confidence had become a source of dread. Jack feared that Martin's self-assured nature meant he would go to any lengths, using any weapon at his disposal, to bend fate to his will even if it meant leaving a trail of devastation in his wake. When Jack finally pulled up to the house, his heart was pounding so loudly he was sure it could be heard through the closed car window. With trembling hands, he rushed to the front door and tried the knob. But to his horror, the door was locked. A deep silence emanated from inside, no muffled cries, no signs of struggle, no echo of a violent encounter. It was as if the house were holding its breath, guarding its secrets from an uninvited guest. Jack's mind spun wildly with a cascade of unsettling thoughts. Had the danger passed before he could arrive, or was it merely a prelude to something even more sinister? His eyes darted from the locked door to the darkened windows, and the oppressive quiet pressed against him like a physical force. Every second of silence was a heavy reminder of the potential horror lurking within. Was Traci safe, or was she trapped inside a scene of carnage that he could only imagine? The silence was absolute. The eerie stillness felt contrived, as if the entire scene had been orchestrated to leave him teetering on the edge of dread and anticipation. The very air seemed to vibrate with the tension of the unknown, and every instinct in Jack's body screamed for him to act. Yet, the locked door mocked his urgency, forcing him to stand outside, uncertain of what to do next. Jack's mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. On one hand, relief flickered inside him at the thought that perhaps no brutal conflict had taken place. On the other, an insidious fear gnawed at his soul, whispering that if something had occurred inside, the silence was only the calm before an inevitable storm of revelations. Every shadow, every creak of the wind, played tricks on his nerves, turning mundane sounds into foreboding omens. The scene had all the hallmarks of a suspenseful cliffhanger, one that left him, and surely the viewers who had witnessed the build-up, in agonizing suspense. The episode had built to this crescendo of uncertainty, deliberately halting just as the tension reached its peak. The creators had masterfully woven a tapestry of dread, layering each moment with palpable anxiety, leaving the audience to question, what would happen next? Was Traci in danger? Had Martin truly succeeded in his cruel plan, or had fate intervened in a way that defied all the darkness he had unleashed? In that agonizing pause, Jack's mind raced through every possibility. He pictured himself finally bursting through the door, weapon in hand, prepared to confront whatever evil lay within. He imagined the scene in excruciating detail, the sight of blood, the sound of desperate cries, the overwhelming stench of fear and despair. But even as his imagination ran wild, a part of him held on to a fragile hope that perhaps the worst-case scenario was not unfolding inside. Perhaps the locked door was a sign of something else entirely, a safeguard against intruders, or a deliberate move by someone who knew what was coming and wanted to delay the inevitable confrontation. Jack's internal battle was mirrored by the silence around him. Each passing minute felt like an eternity, stretching the boundaries of his nerves to the breaking point. He stood there, drenched in the cold rain and clutching the car keys like a lifeline, caught between the urge to force entry and the dread of what might be found on the other side. The suspense was palpable, an unspoken promise that the next moment could change everything, for better or for worse. And then, just as the tension reached its zenith, the screen faded to black, an abrupt end that left the audience suspended in a state of disbelief. The unresolved question hung heavily in the air: what would Jack find if he managed to breach that door? Had Traci been saved from the nightmare his mind had conjured, or was the scene inside a testament to the brutal reality of Martin's machinations? The episode ended there, leaving fans on the edge of their seats, hearts pounding in unison with Jack's own. Social media erupted with theories and speculations. Was Martin merely playing a long game, or had he set the stage for an even darker chapter yet to come? Every viewer was left grappling with the same question: what was waiting behind that locked door in the stillness of the night? For Jack, the uncertainty was an unbearable weight. His worst fears danced like shadows at the periphery of his vision, each one a reminder of the vulnerability of the ones he loved. And as he stood there in the rain, the silence of the house looming ominously before him, he knew that this was only the beginning of a harrowing journey. A journey where the line between good and evil blurred into a treacherous gray, and where every decision could mean the difference between salvation and damnation. In that charged moment of suspense, with the locked door standing as a silent guardian of its hidden secrets, Jack's determination hardened. No matter what lay behind that door, he resolved to face it head-on, ready to fight with every fiber of his being. His love for Traci, the bond that had always anchored him, was now his driving force. And though the darkness might have claimed its victims before, Jack knew that hope could still shine through the bleakest of nights. The screen might have gone dark, but in the hearts of those who watched, the flame of anticipation burned ever brighter, an unyielding beacon, urging them to wait for the next chapter in this high-stakes saga. February 2nd.